Greeting, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Beer Blather 248, Learning Curve Flatlined. There we go again. Democrats and their apparatchiks, and quite a few others, frankly, have no learning curve. They never understood anything. They never will. Their learning curve is flat as a Utah salt lake. They still speak of Latin American democracies as if there had ever been any. They still talk about China as the inevitable superpower, Russia as a force to contend with, and war as an unwinnable proposition. Israel is beating the pants off of terrorists in the Middle East. Ceasefire. We are denying a base for Islamists in Afghanistan. Withdraw. We are turning Iraq into a forward base in the fight against IslamoFasists. Get out. Assad is on his arse. Let the Iranians have him. All of this defeatism, appeasement, and surrender only means one thing. Get ready for versions 2.0, 3.0, and so on ad aeternum. The same morons who celebrated our withdrawal from Syria are now celebrating the rebel takeover of Aleppo. Good luck with that one, once we know who they are. Turkey? Islamists? Free Syrian Army? Kurds? All of the above? I'll let you know when the dust settles. At least, it appears the biggest losers are, yet again, Russia and Iran, and that is not so bad. What to make of this? Let us delve into it. And what is it that we keep doing over and over and over again without getting a clear lesson for all the treasure and blood invested? This is Saul Montez Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information from Florida, Southeast Florida, actually. And I'm here with my good friend, the dearly departed Thomas Victor. You know, there are rumors of your death, Thomas.
Yeah. I've become aware of that. I don't know what to tell people. How long have we been doing this show? 3 years?
More.
Yeah.
It's going to be 5 years in a few months.
Wow. So
Amazing,
if people want to find me, they can find me. But it's that thing where people want to be told rather than to do their own basic research. I had a friend in high school, and just one day, very close friend, I really liked her. She's an ice skater and
nice legs.
Really brilliant, really funny, super intelligent. We hung out all the time. And then just out of the blue, I just decided, I wonder whatever happened to her. And unfortunately, she died early. But I put her name into Google, and the third entry was an obituary. So if you want to find me, just put my name into Google. And
well, you know that me being your Svengali, I'm hitting your obituary so that people don't realize. But nevertheless, you look good for a corpse.
Well, I'm AI. I look good for AI. So
that's it. Don't put any ideas in their minds.
Well, this is
the rock version of Thomas.
There's a YouTuber. His name is Charlie, and his user handle is Moist. He's called Moist Critical, and his YouTube account name is Penguin20. And for whatever reason, suddenly everywhere people are making AI videos of him. All his videos are the same. He wears a white T-shirt. He's got very long hair and a beard and a mustache. He sits in his chair, and he's a social commentator. He just comments on things. And so people are making these outrageously brilliant AI videos where he's talking in his chair and a rhinoceros comes thundering through, or a 400-pound man comes in, or he says he's been working out. What do you want to see? And he lifts his shirt and he's got a magnificent set of boobs inside a brassiere. Just brilliant, and it just took off. Everybody's doing this. It's a fad that will die out sooner or later. But they did the same thing to that British chef Gordon
Ramsay.
Pardon me?
Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay. They did the same thing to him.
A video. What the fuck is this?
The AI videos they've put out are stunning because they're almost photorealistic and they're just bizarre. He's cooking, and all of a sudden a bald clone of himself comes in and they start vomiting liquid on each other, and then they hug, and just you could basically make videos of whatever you want. And I could be AI. We still haven't got to the point where you can make an AI video that's interactive. I don't think. I don't think that's there yet, and they still have problems with the mouths. The mouths have trouble linking up with the words, but it's only a matter of time.
Well, it's like dubbing a film into a different language. There's always going to be a little lack of synchronization because the system is not so good that it can actually make the lips move in synchronicity. You're showing an image where the guy is saying something else, and you have the voiceover, but still they're sometimes quite impressive.
Yeah, and okay, one of the theories is that Hollywood is going to go for straight AI actors because it's cheaper. That's not going to happen because you still need actors to make appearances. You need actors to go to award shows. There's always going to be actors. They've already done computer graphic versions. Oliver Reed died before the filming of the movie Gladiator ended, and so they basically recreated Oliver Reed as a computer graphic and finished the scenes he was supposed to film. So we're going to have AI, and a lot of those stupid Star Wars movies have characters that are
shit tons of animation there.
Well, pure computer graphics. Lord of the Rings had characters that were pure computer graphics. So, AI will make it. We'll be seeing a hell of a lot of more AI, but
I'll tell you what. If it means not having to put up with the Aniston girl in interviews anymore, I vote for AI.
Well,
and I'll bet you 10-1 that if they do it in AI, Sharon Stone's hoo-ha would be much better.
I told you last night, I recently saw that movie for the first time, Basic Instinct. I'd never seen the movie before, and I'd heard, of course.
What happened? Did you lose a bet or something?
No, it was on. And I'd heard about the legendary vagina scene, and when it happened, it was so underwhelming. For one thing, it looked like a baby's genitals. For another thing, it was super awkward. The point of the scene was she was showing her power over the men. So I imagine it would be a graceful uncrossing and crossing of legs, and instead it was like uncrossing and just kind of sitting there like a sack of potatoes, and then crossing, and it was dumb. It was stupid. I mean, I was, like I said, I was so underwhelmed, and now she's in Italy telling the Italians that they're better than us because at one point in time they were voluntary fascists. And it's like, wait a minute, these guys chose to be fascists. What are you talking about? What she said that, Italians, what fascism is. Yeah, because they chose it. It wasn't imposed on them from the outside.
Half of the country still is.
And as soon as they were fascists, they went to Ethiopia and started committing outrageous atrocities.
Oh, mind
like
you, that
was
Abyssinia.
Abyssinia.
They changed the name of Ethiopia, Abyssinia.
Right. And
they wanted to name it as if it was still the Roman Empire.
Well, Mussolini was jealous of the Nazis, and unfortunately for him, he didn't have I know about tanks. The Italian tanks were all riveted together rather than welded because they didn't have they really didn't have enough welders. So these tanks went into battle, and when an enemy shell hit the tank, all the rivets would break off and go popping through the inside and kill the crew. So, the Italians, as individual soldiers, they were fine, but the leadership was crap and the manufacturing was crap. So,
I told you about my uncle.
Yes,
who fought under Rommel,
right?
And he was, and I'm not making this shit up, a bersagliere motociclista.
Yeah.
Now the bersaglieri are those troops with a hat with a fancy black plume in their hats,
black cock feathers.
Yes, and on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Now, can you imagine soldiers going through the fucking Sahara with a fucking feather in a motorcycle?
Well, in World War I, they wore steel helmets that they somehow fastened their feathers to. So you're in your trench and your shell hole crouching down, and you've got your black feathers sticking up.
Yeah, but who sends a soldier in a fucking motorcycle to the desert?
The Italians.
Nobody else did that shit. God.
No, I mean, the Italians, I don't have anything against Italians, but for Sharon Stone to go over there and bitch about, and she's done it multiple times. She did it at a press conference. She's done it as she was being interviewed on the red carpet.
Yep. And she's echoing the bullshit of the bien-pensant crowd called the Sociologie de Paris. You see, Americans are naive and ignorant.
Yeah.
And adolescents, they're like children.
Yeah.
We're like children who saved your ass.
Twice.
Twice in the past century alone. We saved their ass in Vietnam too, let's face it. That would be 3 times. And because that's the reason we went there. And you're using our technology. We're enjoying the fruits of our financial system. You have inequality of life because of the purchases we made of your goods. And we are the naive people. We're the naive people without whom you cannot fucking eat.
Well, not only that, the adults that Sharon Stone admires so much, they went to war with each other every 20 years like clockwork, going back to millennia. And the only reason they stopped was because we finally moved into Europe and took away all their weapons.
Yeah, and left a shitload of soldiers in.
Exactly.
Currently, we have dozens of thousands of American soldiers in England, in Italy, in Germany. France is the only place we don't. And that's why it's a basket case. We protect them in the Mediterranean. We protect them in the North Atlantic. And they are the adults.
Well, the original purpose of having Americans there was to keep these bastards apart. So, and then more morally and intellectually superior Europeans in the form of the white Russians, the Russians from the western part of Russia.
Yeah.
They decided that they were going to be as big a problem as the Nazis were if we let them. So these people.
Oh, come on. Can you imagine Russia losing Western Europe today?
Well, European history is a history of savagery, and it's a level of savagery that continued all the way up until when we forced them to stop massacring each other. And it's shit like the Croatians serving with the Nazis. I think they were called the Hanshar troops.
The Hanshar Brigade, that's the one that Haj Amin al-Husseini was a Sturmbannführer in.
Right. And what they would
were the
do,
most savage bastards there were.
What they would do to capture Serbs and let's see, it's the Serbs, the Croats, and the Montenegrins. No.
Yeah, there were some.
What are the three former Yugoslavian people who are always fighting each other? They all speak the same language.
Serbia, Croatia, and Bosnia.
Bosnia, okay. The Serbs, I guess the Croatians, I don't know, it's too complicated. Anyway, the Hanshar troops, one of their favorite ways of murdering people was to use the two-handed bucksaw that you use to cut down trees, and they would saw people down. They would start in their groin and saw them in half. They would stand people on their heads with their legs spread, and they would saw them in half all the way down to their heads. Like who comes up with shit like that? Europeans, that's who.
And for centuries, they have been at the forefront of new and innovative ways to kill each other.
Yeah,
I always loved it in medieval England. They were creative. They were very fucking creative. To have somebody's guts rolled out of their body while they watched and cut them in pieces with 4 horses, then plant the parts in pikes around town so that people know what's going to happen if they misbehave. And what I like the best is when they condemn somebody post-mortem. So they went to the cemetery, dug up the putrefied corpse, and did the treatment to the corpse.
Well, they murdered some bishop by shoving a red-hot poker up his butt.
Oh, that was a king, actually.
That was a king?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Edward of Carnarvon.
Yeah, and there's beautiful medieval illustrations of that act of intellectual superiority.
Yeah. You put an ossobuco. You know, ossobuco is the leg bone that has a hole in the center with a marrow. Delicious stuff. So what they did is they put that, and they shoved the red hot iron through it so there wouldn't be any burns in the asshole. So that when the corpse was examined by the erudites, there were no outward, let's say, signals of what they had done. They literally cauterized his gut.
Yeah, I mean,
took days to die.
This is. I mean, look at the whole list of European kings who were either killed in battle or grievously wounded in battle, because that's all they did. All they did was fight each other. And every single group living where they are today in Europe used to live somewhere else in Europe, and they got there by either being chased or by conquering.
Or by doing the chasing.
And American leftists have this but ignorant idea that the Europeans are somehow morally superior to each other. And the European savagery didn't end with World War II. The French wiped out almost 1/10
of what they did in Algiers.
Wiped out almost 1/10 of the Algerian population from 1954 to 1962. I mean,
yeah, and they're giving people lessons in genocide.
Exactly. The French in the Ivory Coast. I mean, there's footage of helicopters strafing crowds of civilians that date from the mid
Yeah.
1990s. So,
Blind Eye here says that no castle was complete without an oubliette. Uh,
exactly.
yes, and by the way, that was the favorite feature of the camps of the terrorist camps of M19. Remember, I told you that the now president of Colombia used to take a shit on the prisoners in the oubliette, and that's why they still call him El Cacas. Can you
Yeah.
believe that? And that is the European inheritance. Americans from the very beginning were distraught and disgusted by violence. It's something that revisionists today have a serious problem trying to comprehend. While Europe was burning hundreds of thousands of women from Spain to England to Denmark to Holland, uh, when you say Holland, I think it was 165,000 women who were burned for being a witch. All it took was 12 in the Massachusetts colony for the people to rise up and say, no fucking more. We cannot do this. This is literally cuckoo.
Well, every single time this country goes to war, after the war, we unilaterally disarm. Every time, our entire history, we're we you hear this fake accusation that Americans are warlike. They love war. We hate war. We hate war.
Yeah.
We're really good at it.
To our detriment.
Well, exactly. I mean, okay, today, these people who self-identify as conservatives, they're obsessed with Ukraine. I told you I saw an AI music video. And it was by a group called the Dor Brothers, DOR. But they depicted Zelensky sitting at a table laughing, surrounded by stacks of American dollars. And that pissed me off to no end because, okay, you told me that people always ask you, you get at least one message a day. Is Thomas ever coming back to social media, to Twitter?
Yeah. How many times have you said what you feel about it?
Well, let me tell you.
We have it on video. We have it in writing. What do you have to do?
Well, I just want to remind people, or not remind them, inform them. I'm not going back to Twitter because I'm too impatient now. I'm absolutely impatient with the implacable, indestructible stupidity that makes people accuse the Ukrainians of stuffing their pockets with American cash. I mean,
it's a money laundering operation. It's a money laundering operation.
Right, which is, as we've pointed out a long time, or several times, it's the mechanics of money laundering don't apply to Ukraine on any level.
It would apply only if the money that we give to the Ukrainians is the product of illegal activity, and we ship it physically to Ukraine so that they can put it into the system, and then it can enter the system and move around. The object, the purpose, the raison d'etre of money laundering is to legitimize black money, not the other way around.
Yeah, the money we're giving Ukraine is legitimate American funds that's
right.
allocated by Congress. So,
however little that is,
and you right there and then that kills the money laundering claim.
And if the Ukrainians then steal it and put it under the mattress, that is anti-money laundering. It's the opposite of money laundering. They're turning good money into black money.
The Ukrainians who've been arrested or fired or relieved of their positions for
Yes.
corruption by the Zelensky administration. These guys are doing penny. One of them, he was accused of stealing $18,000 worth of
Yeah.
I think it was like shorts and selling them on the black market.
Yes. How about the army recruiters that were collecting money from people not to induct them?
That has nothing to do with us.
And number one, it has nothing to do with American money. Number two, they were all court-martialed.
They're all court-martialed. When we were
Number three, we're talking about penny ante. How much do you think the bribes were?
like $200.
Oh, corrupt. It is today. Ukraine has always been a corrupt country, like every country in Eastern Europe, because communism breeds corruption. You cannot survive in a communist country without a level of corruption.
Also, socialism.
Yeah, same thing. It's all of these collectivist systems: fascism, communism, socialism, all the isms breed corruption. Control markets breed black markets. Insane regulations breed bribery. Take a look at Mexico. So Ukraine was, as every other Eastern European country, a cesspool of corruption. Today, they're a less corrupt country than Germany.
Yeah,
They hit their targets for governance for the European Union better than Germany.
Well, and the Russo-Ukraine war is real. So the Ukrainians aren't taking, they're not taking the M2 Bradleys and selling them in the Middle East. They're not doing stuff like that. There was a claim made that American small arms were appearing on the black market. Where did that go? What was the end of that claim? What was the evidence?
How many? There was none. Oh God! How many countries are using American and European? By the way, the Europeans have given the Ukrainians way more than the Americans. I'm sick and fucking tired of people who say Europe has to carry its weight. We cannot be the only ones. We're not the only ones.
We're not the only ones.
And of course, yeah, of course, we have given more than Poland in absolute terms, but because Poland has an economy smaller than fucking Florida, you idiots. Poland has contributed 4.5% of its GDP this year towards Ukraine aid. And collectively, the European countries have contributed more arms and more cash than the US at a similar level of population with a lesser GDP.
Well, also, the Europeans are opening old munitions factories and building new munitions factories.
Yes.
NATO is recommending that all European countries switch to a wartime economy. So,
and they're doing it.
The Europeans are carrying their own weight. And the Europeans are also mulling sending actual troops to Ukraine. So, we're never going to do that. We may, if a shooting war breaks out with Russia, we'll certainly bomb them, but we're not going to send troops.
We're not going to need to send troops. Let's face it. Just send a couple of B-2s and a few sorties and see how this shit ends in a week.
Well, okay, the Russian economy it's entered its death spiral.
Yes.
Putin has ordered that all revenue generated by Russia be switched over to the military, but they have nobody in the factories. They have no material to build stuff. Remember when everyone was saying, "Oh my God, they came up with this intermediate range ballistic missile that they're going to be firing at Ukraine on a daily basis." No, they're not.
Yes. No. And by the way, the new missile is an old ICBM.
Yeah.
It shortened. It's kind of like a Frankenstein. It reminds me of those T-62s with a little netting to stop bombs from drones. A slight modification of an old piece of shit. There's nothing new about it. Remember that missile that they announced a year ago? That was the fastest one on Earth. Nothing can take it down. Where is it?
Yeah, they called it the Satan missile, and they announced that it was going into production. It's never had a successful test, not a single one.
No, and nobody's seen one fly yet.
No, I mean,
Nobody will.
for whatever reason, okay, leftists believe that we all want the same things and that all conflict is a result of misunderstanding. So there's nobody in the Biden administration who's going to give Putin a come to Jesus talk. Trump is going to have, I admire him so much, and I always forget his name, the former head of the DNI, the former ambassador to Germany.
Rick Grinnell.
Grinnell is going to be our envoy to Ukraine. So he's going to be the Russo-Ukraine war envoy, which means he's going to give the Russians a lot of, plain truths that they're not going to want to hear. But the Russians will basically be told, you have to knock this shit off immediately. All you have to do is announce that you've met all your goals and go back home. Zelensky said today that he's willing to temporarily cede territory in exchange for protection by NATO.
You know that this plan has been floating around for over a year now.
Right.
And it was a thing that Stolfus proposed to NATO countries, that to allow Ukraine to join NATO, but with the proviso that territories occupied by Russia could not be used for Article 5 requests.
Exactly, and that's what Zelensky said. Basically,
but that thing is neither new nor revolutionary, and is no victory for Russia, and it does not mean that Zelensky is giving up the territory. What it means is that if you want a fucking ceasefire, you put me in NATO, assholes, because I don't want these people coming back.
Yeah.
And then we'll worry about freeing Ukrainian territory.
Which will be a matter of, basically just walking in. The people living in the Russian-held territories, they're pretty sick of Russians by now. They're sick of the rapes. They're sick of the looting. They're done. They want to go back to Ukraine. And
the Russians have been kidnapping their children to send them into training camps in Russia and turning them into soldiers for Russia. There is such a not discontent at this point. Most people in the occupied territories want to eat their livers, meaning Russian livers. They're up to here. And to this day, half the population is being viciously treated by the Russians because, for instance, they refuse to get a Russian passport. Which is being made compulsory, and a lot of people don't fucking want a Russian passport. And for Russia, that is subversive, and it probably is, come to think of it. But no, they're not welcoming the orcs. Maybe a handful, maybe a few fanatics, but no more than we have Nazis in the U.S.
Well, also people who are extremely well off. Just people like all our stupid actors who are successful actors, who have the luxury of being able to embrace ideas that are ruinous for the rest of us, but that won't touch them in the slightest.
No, it will never reach the boundaries of Bel-Air.
Yep.
They can propose all of this shit and then retire to their mansion overlooking the ocean and not give a shit. It's never going to touch them.
No, and as we've seen from the Biden administration, you could do a hell of a lot of damage in just a few short years. The the prognosticator with the eyebrows like this, who said that Trump was going to lose because of the 13 keys.
Which one? The guy with the 13 keys, who's never been right, really. The 13 keys, by the way, are so fucking subjective that he makes them say whatever he wants them to say.
Well, his new prediction is that Trump is in such ill health that he's not going to serve. That the plan was to have Trump win, and then Trump will resign, and JD Vance will become the president.
What is this? Like he's still sitting over speculation that Biden wasn't going to last?
Have you ever seen? I saw a recent clip of Trump golfing. That is not a weak, sick man. That is a powerful man. He's 17.
Did you see his schedule during the campaign?
Well, it's the thing that they're all jabbering about how exhausted he was, and it's like, well, then how is he managing to keep up this utterly brutal, punishing schedule if he's so weak and exhausted?
And who was saying he was exhausted and couldn't show up?
Kamala, yeah.
And you consider the possibility that something that dropped off of her face asshole is true?
Well, see, in the case of Kamala went off for an extended vacation in Hawaii and came back looking much worse.
And drunk as shit.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, but aged.
Yeah,
she's 20 years younger than Trump, and look at the wear and tear. It's amazing. I'm just glad that after January of 2025, it'll be like no more.
I used to joke. I would tell people, I'm only 40 years old. What you're looking at is not the ravages of age, but the consequences of a dissipated lifestyle.
Sure.
Now, in my case, it was a joke. I'm not 40 years old. In her case, it fits. What I'm looking at is not the ravages of age. She's not that old. She's younger than me.
Yeah, she's 2 years younger than me.
She's the age of my wife. Now, you've seen my wife.
I have indeed.
And now my wife is out there teaching people step dancing and Zumba and all that jazz. And she moves about like a 20-year-old. How lucky can I get? Really? I mean,
Well, does she drink an entire quart of vodka every day?
No, she'll drink a glass of wine with a meal. She's got a healthy lifestyle and good genes, to say. But my point is, my wife looks 20 years younger than this bitch. Mm-hmm. They're the same age.
Yeah. No, it's the thing that is really funny is that the Democrats, Kamala didn't come up with the idea of getting rid of Joe and parachuting her in to take his place. That wasn't her idea. That was the idea of the Obamas, the donors, all these people. But she's getting all the blame for losing. Which tells me that they haven't learned a damn thing from this massive defeat, and they're not going to improve anything in the foreseeable future.
Talk about a flatlining learning curve.
Exactly.
No, by the way, Obama didn't really want her.
No, he didn't.
He wanted a kind of tight-knit primary to choose the successor and wanted her out. But Biden and Pigliosi did an end run on him, announced the thing, and it was too late. But still, if I recall, Obama spent like 5, 6 days before he said, okay, well, let's go with this bitch. Because he's an asshole, but he's not that stupid. I mean, he's stupid, but not that stupid.
Well, we found out after the election that all of Obama's people that surrounded her during the campaign, they all knew she was going to lose. They knew the whole time. They said what's his name? The guy, the bald guy, kind of chunky with a mustache, David Axelrod. Axelrod said that they never saw a path to victory. That they were looking at the media polls and they were like shaking their heads at how inaccurate the polls were in terms of putting Kamala. They said that their own polls showed that she never had a lead over Trump, not even
never did. You and I always said it.
Yeah.
I said I can see no scenario in which this bitch would lead the campaign or win. And I couldn't.
No, and the only reason I didn't confidently predict a Trump win was because there was always a possibility that the Democrats would steal another election.
Take a look at California or Wisconsin.
Exactly.
Because they did.
Exactly. Isn't California still counting votes?
Can you believe that?
Yeah. I mean, this is it's so overt. It's so in your face.
They're going to keep counting until they get the necessary votes to reverse as many. Already, there are at least 5 congressional races that they've reversed.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is, it's obscene. A guy who, a week after the election, was losing by 4,000 votes is now winning by 188.
Yeah. And okay, you had it was somewhere in Pennsylvania. It was a triumvirate of leftists, and the female on the panel said that they knew that the way they were counting the votes was illegal, but they were going to do it anyway.
That was Burke County.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stupid bitch said, and she said, that if it is against the law, so be it, but we need to call attention on this.
Right. And then you had the head of NPR saying that news organizations are distracted by their search for the truth, that what we need is consensus on something. We need to come to a consensus on what happened, and whether it's true or not doesn't matter. It's just a consensus. So,
well, from her standpoint, it's a flawless reasoning.
Well, see, they're at the point now where they're saying if leftists were in total, absolute, perpetual control, they would be able to say all this Orwellian shit and get away with it. But they're not. They're not. There's always going to be
we're still in flux, fortunately.
In this last election, we saw that a majority of the country rejected that. So for them to come out and say all this stuff, knowing that it's going to cause them to lose elections, is mind-boggling to me.
But remember, there is no objective truth.
Yeah.
If you and I agree that the earth is flat, then the truth is that the earth is flat by virtue of our agreement.
Correct.
It's no different than global warming.
Mm-hmm.
There is a consensus. All scientists agree. And we know through Galileo that the agreement of the majority of scientists doesn't mean shit. It is what it is, regardless of what these nincompoops say.
Well, my brother and I suffer from gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GERD. And he had to have surgery 15, 20 years ago. and everything has changed so much that what he experienced 20 years ago is no longer um, part of the.
Now they do it with an endoscopy, and you're
Or
out of
you
the.
don't even have to get surgery. They've, science is changing all the time, and this notion that the science is settled. Science is never settled. It should never be settled. There should always be an open door to change. This is why, in the case of uh, uh, what would you call them, archaic humans. When you and I were growing up, the Neanderthals were these retarded cave dwellers.
Yep.
Now they've not.
Now they're grandpa, grandma, and they're human.
Well, this is the thing. We interbred with them. I learned that the Cro-Magnons exterminated them. Well, turns out we interbred with them, and it turns out there were several different subspecies of Neanderthal-like humans. Everybody basically, they all.
You know that the best proof that this happened is Brennan.
Brennan.
Brennan is a throwback. Brennan is the missing link with
Well,
Neanderthal.
I've seen people in the deepest, darkest parts of Russia who look like they're completely unevolved.
Yeah,
When
they aren't.
when Johnny something or other, the American who went to fight for the Taliban, he was from.
Adam
Pardon?
Gadan.
No, his name was John or Johnny. He ended up going to prison, but in the footage that showed him sitting up against the wall, right next to him was a Neanderthal for all practical purposes. It was a guy with a huge beetle brow, a receding chin, a unibrow, and he looked for all the world, like a Neanderthal. And just comparing the two guys, their heads next to each other, is like, okay, this guy is a modern human, and this guy is some kind of.
Look at Brennan. Brennan has the protruding eyebrows, the forehead slanted almost 45 degrees.
Mm-hmm,
He has the face of a fucking gorilla
mm-hmm,
and a body to match. The guy's a fucking Neanderthal. I don't care.
mm-hmm.
I know whose genes won the battle in that body.
Yeah, and so
John Walker Lind was
John
the guy
Walker,
you
that was John Walker Lind.
Yeah.
See, that's another thing. When we first started all this horse shit in 2001, that may as well have been, the year 1801.
1,000 years ago.
Exactly. Everything's changed. Science, military science, social science, everything has changed. And the only people who were reverting are the progressives, which is ironic given the name they've chosen for themselves. They're not progressive in the slightest. They're
never were.
No. And the only real progressives out there are the Trump supporters. We're going to see. It appears that the people who Trump has nominated are going to basically zip through. The plan is to have them confirmed all on the same day, and we're going to see them just shake this government tree until it almost comes up out of the ground. And I'm all for it.
I was talking to a friend today, and he was telling me how we should modify this, modify that, send this department to Omaha, send that department to that. I said, no, we don't need to send the education department to Wisconsin. We need to dismantle it.
Yeah.
We don't need to send the what was it that he mentioned? The agricultural department to Iowa. We need to reduce it to bare essentials and make it a part of another department. There is no need for all of these. And I was going to say personnel, but then I remember that 80% of the office space of these departments in Washington is empty.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even working out of Washington anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want band-aids.
no, we have to really, really, really make a massive amount of difference that makes a lot of people scream hysterically and makes them not be able to think clearly, and so they make the same sorts of mistakes they made during this election cycle. They'll make them during the midterm elections, and start delivering as soon as possible. Get our energy abilities back online as quickly
Oh,
as.
come on. We have 2 years to get half of this done,
Yep.
and get a leg up on the other half.
Yep.
Okay? The majority in the House is ridiculously small.
Hmm?
You change 3 congressmen, the Democrats pick up 3 seats at the expense of the Republicans, and all of a sudden they are in the majority.
Hmm?
Uh, the midterms are a toss. And I know, but people are going to be happy, but this, but that, but it's going to be a midterm. And they cheat like shit on these races. There are too many counties, too many jurisdictions that are worse than 2020.
Well, this is why during those 2 years we need to really, really tackle, the election integrity law and just basically outlaw absolutely everything except a paper ballot on election day. End of story.
Yeah, with the results known by midnight.
Yep.
And that's it. If we don't get that passed, I don't know. I have a hard trouble imagining how it ends if we don't make sure they cannot cheat anymore.
Well, everything's changed. I saw this idiot. It's some show, and it's a squawking, bespectacled young leftist idiot and a bland kind of bespectacled milquetoast Republican. And her election prediction was 394 electoral votes for Kamala Harris. And
Wow.
yeah, and
Talk about delusion.
well, Texas and Florida were going to go blue. And then the day after the election, they came back on, and she wasn't on the show. He handled it all by himself, and I'm sure she's.
It was catatonic, probably.
Yeah, she's out making screaming TikToks or whatever. But it's just it's what's so amazing that the okay, I saw Rosie O'Donnell, and Rosie O'Donnell was she was giving a very grave end of the world presentation about how democracy has died, fascism is coming, fascism is here. And
I agree with so many Democrats.
well, I was just amazed because she's living in California, as far as I know, maybe the East Coast, and that's the epicenter of literal real fascism. And Trump governed as a federalist in his first term, and yet someone like Rosie O'Donnell, who I'm sure considers herself of superior intelligence, has erased that from her mind, that Trump is going to go from a federalist to, as the Atlantic said, that Trump will be worse than Hitler, Stalin, and Mao combined. They actually wrote an article.
The Atlantic was bought a few years ago by the Emerson Collective,
Right.
an avowed Trotskyite organization backed by Lauren Jobs, that merry widow with a shitload of money and no brains. Uh, what a Trotskyite has to say about who's going to be what is none of my concern. Of course, they're going to say that. All they do is leftist propaganda. They sound like fucking Pravda during Brezhnev.
Yeah, but it's dumb. It's like it's so overstated.
Always was.
Everybody just laughs. I mean, what are the differences between
Give us 101. If you're gonna lie, let it be a big lie.
that only works up to a point. This time around, okay, Kamala. I saw an interview with there's some ESPN sports guy named Stephen A. Smith who's spending more time on politics and sports. And he had this legendary Hollywood actress named Julie Lewis. I think that's her name. And
Who's that?
I never heard of her. She's a black woman who appears to be in her late 60s. And he asked her about, the results, and she was embarrassing. Honey, we don't know. Kamala, if she'd been elected, she would have surrounded herself with. It was just like, oh, stop.
Oh, she sounds like Hillary Clinton.
Well, it was really dumb. And she was talking about Kamala was a courageous, joyful warrior. And it's like, in which dimension was Kamala a courageous, joyful warrior?
I always thought she was an unhappy, drunken whore.
Well, the only joy this time around, even before the election, was on the Trump side. It was like Trump was trolling the Democrats.
Dancing to the YMCA song.
Yeah, Trump was trolling the Democrats nonstop. Trump's supporters were just laughing in the face of Don Lemon when he tried to convince them that they weren't paying more for groceries. They just said, "Yeah, okay, all right, bye, Don." They didn't.
No, but nothing was more joyful than Tim Walz's wife. Remember her?
I just remember.
Turn the page. Let's turn the page. Say it with me. Let's turn the page. I wonder if the Looney Bin where Bob Reiner went has another spot for her.
Well, I remember seeing a picture of sad and grim Tim with his sad and grim adult daughter, just kind of both sitting there going. It was really a very, very pathetic photo. And no, Tim Walz, it was like, whose giant brained idea was that? They were promoting him. He's everybody's favorite.
It was Kakala.
He was everybody's favorite uncle. And it's like, no, he isn't. He's creepy. He's
a creepy son of a bitch who ruins the Thanksgiving dinner.
Well, he has that horrendous vibe that it's just like he makes your skin crawl. It's like, go away. There's something wrong with you.
Yes, very, very. Oh God, no, I'm not gonna say it, but yeah, he has a very, very weird vibe. He is a pervert. He's not just a communist. I mean, that is like a cherry on top. His relationship with the Communist Party in China, his description of communism as communism is being a good neighbor. In China,
yeah.
China is great because neighbors care for each other, and if that is your description of communism, you're a certifiable lunatic.
Well, neighbors snitch on each other to the secret police because it's neighborly.
Yes. Well,
No,
if you recall, the Cultural Revolution was the neighbors getting together to protect each other.
yeah, and in Tim Walz's beloved communist China during the Cultural Revolution, people were encouraged by the government, and they went ahead and they cannibalized people with different ideas. They not only
Yes.
cannibalized, they butchered them and hung their meat in butcher shops. So, and that was in the 1970s. That wasn't 200, 500 years ago.
No, I remember the events. One roommate of mine at NYU was one of the first exchange students from China, and in the moment of hops and merriment, he told me some things that made your skin crawl
Yeah.
of his surviving the Cultural Revolution. And he was a guy that never talked about China because anything he said, if it came back to him in China, he would be back in the Cultural Revolution. No, it's. But neighbors take care of each other. That's the essence of the Chinese system of government. Go fuck yourself.
No, and that sort of reframing of a system as evil as communism. I listened to this YouTube channel. It's a man who was born in the Soviet Union. I think he's about, I think he's in his mid 50s or so, and he was doing aviation stuff, and then with war breaking out, he started covering Russian history, and he pointed out that there's a folk hero in Russia who was a border guard, and he was a folk hero because he detained almost 1,000 people personally. Not 1,000 people invading, 1,000 people trying to leave.
Yes.
And he personally shot and killed over 200 people. A folk hero. So
Yeah.
that's communism for you.
Listen, and Russia, by the way, and that's communism, and that's the Russian spirit. I used to ask people if Russia was an authoritarian country because it was communist, or was it because it was Russian? The answer is both.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know. It was authoritarian when it was communist, and it is authoritarian today because Russians are authoritarian.
It was authoritarian before communism.
Yes, so obviously, being Russian leads you into this particular thing. We're going to see it. I mean, we see it today when Russians give you all of this patriotic discourse that they're willing to eat their dog shit so that we can kill the Ukrainians, type of shit. I wonder if they're going to feel the same way when they actually have to eat their dog shit, which is not too far around the corner.
It's coming. It's coming.
It's coming. I mean, their economy is in a shambles in a way that most people in the U.S. couldn't possibly understand. Everybody's concentrated on the ruble losing 7% in 1 week. That's nothing, baby.
Yeah.
That's not. You know what the problem is? 70% of the industrial capacity of Russia is shut.
Yeah.
The remaining 30% is dedicated almost exclusively to the war effort.
Yeah.
The government is taking every factory, every place for the fabrication of metals, and turning it into the war effort, and they cannot manufacture 1/3 the shells they need every month.
Well,
think about that.
Also, let's say they managed to grind out 100 tanks in some specified period. They get sent to the front, and some idiot tells them to go charge against a fortified position. So the brand new tank goes out, immediately gets blown up, and that's the end.
Yeah. No, I mean they're strategical prowess at the front. It's gonna change the literature of military campaigns. Uh, did you see what they did with the North Koreans?
What?
They put them all in a bunker at the
Oh,
edge of the occupied zone, and
mm,
the Ukrainians dropped a couple of storm shadows. By the way, they do come from England, but 25% of the components come from Italy and 20% from the US.
mm,
Just say. And they sent the top general of the North Koreans uh, in critical state to the hospital, killed three of his uh, 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 colonels, and essentially destroyed the North Korean command in one hit, 1 week after arrival.
mm.
Brilliant, they're not.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of at parades of the North Korean generals. They have medals that
Oh, God.
they go all the way down, actually to their trousers. They're wearing
Yes.
medals on their trouser legs. I mean, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Every time a North Korean general parades in Pyongyang, he sets off metal detectors at LAX.
It's. I mean, I don't know. I just don't understand. I saw. Okay, the Russians are busy shooting down their own aircraft, but they can't, for the life of them, shoot down the Ukrainian drone. The Ukrainians are now converting those old Antonov AN-2 biplanes into drones, and this biplane was flying over some part of Russia. Looked like it was going about 40 miles an hour, and it hit its target because there was nobody to shoot it down. And Putin comes out and he makes threats, and it's like, but the Ukrainians are blowing up your entire oil field with a biplane that you can't shoot
Yep.
down.
No.
Threats?
And one of your Bible, you know that I once owned one.
Mm-hmm.
I had it here in Okeechobee Airport. I bought it in 1991
Mm-hmm.
for $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
$5,000. I mean, I sold it after a while. What the fuck am I gonna do with a biplane? So I sold it to a guy who wanted it to dust crops. For that, I understand they're quite effective. They fly very slow, and they're exceedingly reliable, and they're never gonna fall on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the engine stops on you mid-flight, you glide it down. No fucking problem, baby. But that plane is like 80 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were making it up until recently, but it is an 80-year-old design. The Antonov 2. About half the Air Force in Cuba had Antonov 2s.
Yeah, and when Trump was president the first time, the New Yorker, not the New Yorker, the New York Times wrote an article about how the Antonov 2 was North Korea's secret stealth aircraft because it would be able to just simply fly right through all our radars.
Oh, bullshit.
Are you kidding me?
Bullshit. It's like a flying shoebox.
Well, it's like a flying barn. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like the stupidest thing I ever heard, but they had to talk up the North Koreans because this is what the New York Times always does. It talks up our enemies.
Yes.
And, you know,
They were doing it about the Russians again, and that's another thing. A lot of people out there, and I have to say, a lot of people that I consider my friends, are either genuinely worried or, for reasons I cannot comprehend, are talking up the nuclear threat.
mhm.
It is the stupidest argumentation possible. Biden is blind walking us into a nuclear war. No, Biden is a fucking idiot. Uh, I don't think he's taking us anywhere. And at this point, I don't think he's taking himself anywhere, not even the bathroom without help. But that's a different point. There will not, let me see if I'm clear. And if you disagree, please let me know. I will not be offended. There will not be a nuclear war with Russia.
I don't see it happening.
I said 2 years ago, I say it now. In the very unlikely, and every time that Putin talks up nuclear war, within 24 hours, he's walking it back. I have a lovely video out there of Medvedev actually saying, no, of course, we're not going to subscribe to first use of nuclear weapons. It's madness.
And he said that just a few days ago, right?
Yeah, just a few days ago, after all of this hype, Medvedev, who's one of the most bellicose, drunken bastards out there, of course we're not going to. And you know why they have to do that? Because every time they talk up nuclear war, their own oligarchs start calling them, "Are you out of your fucking mind? Really?" You know that a bunch of those oligarchs have now been expelled from Cyprus.
Mm-hmm.
Eh? Deripaska, one of them. Remember Deripaska?
I'm not sure.
Oh, he's the Russian guy who was behind half of the dossier on Trump that Hillary Clinton paid for. And half of the shit came from Deripaska through this English second-rate spy wannabe. And they've been expelled from Cyprus because Cyprus now wants into NATO, another resounding success for Russian foreign policy. Pretty soon, Africa will want into NATO. And they're being thrown out of Cyprus. They're being deprived of their yachts. They're being deprived of the use of their property in London, in New York, in Cyprus, in the Côte d'Azur. They are deprived of the income of their companies in the West. They cannot operate in banks. They have been debanked more often than Melania Trump. And and they're beginning to put pressure. And now you're talking nuclear one, you asshole. You want to be alive next week? I want a disclaimer tomorrow. And so it comes.
Well, I'm convinced that everything that our so-called experts told us about Putin is false, because Putin, we were told that Putin he owns all the money that the oligarchs have, and they're just basically holding it for him. That's my impression too. And since the experts were dead wrong about everything they said about the Russo-Ukraine war, I'm now convinced that everything they tell us about Putin, everything they tell us about the way Russia is run, everything, they're just pulling it out of their butts. And it's this weird leftist love. I mean, who's the dude on MSNBC? Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow said after Trump won.
Richard Maddow.
Rachel Maddow said after Trump won, America has decided to try the strong man. Leftists love strong men. They love them. They love them. They're in love with them. They're in love with people who have the authority to like point to others and say, put him up against the wall, put him up against the wall. They all want to be that person themselves. And so they pay lip service to democracy, but then they write these fawning puff pieces about people like
Maduro, Kim Jong-un,
Putin, or Xi Jinping. I mean,
yeah, all of these bitches are like the widows of Fidel Castro. They're still pining for his death.
I don't know. I just, it's. I mean, reality has to hit sometime. The Russian military is a shambles. It poses no threat to the Ukrainians.
At this point, not even to themselves.
Yeah.
I used to say Russia is a threat only to itself, not anymore. 1 million casualties.
Yeah.
1 cool fucking million. 10,000 casualties in the Afghanistan war over 10 years is said to have caused the demise of the Soviet Union. That wasn't it, by the way. There were other reasons, and it was already underway. But that was 10,000. Now we're talking a cool million in a country of 175 million people. Now imagine how the American people would be if we had accumulated 2 million casualties in Afghanistan in 2 years.
Well, especially if they were males between a specific age group. No,
how would the American people have reacted?
Well, okay, if let's see, it was George W. Bush, the Republicans would be out in the wilderness as a political party for about 50 years. That's what
at least.
Yep.
At least. It's insane. It's difficult to wrap your mind around the dimensions of the Russian debacle.
What gets me, when the war first started, I watched everything I could about it. And then I stopped because I started feeling really gross watching these videos of these numbskulls just charging into battle. And the Ukrainians have those drones that are full of explosives, and the drone comes zipping down on the armored vehicle or the truck, and you see all the faces of the soldiers. They're cowering, they're everything. And I got tired of watching that because
it's still happening in exactly the same fashion.
Happening to this very moment. It's happening as we speak.
The learning curve here too.
No, and these soldiers all have weapons. The people who are holding them at gunpoint are very small in number. If these soldiers, okay, they call them Storm Z units. They're the men who are sent into the meat grinder. Let's say you're given one magazine of bullets. That's 30 rounds.
Yeah.
And there's 100 of you against 10 of the security forces.
They're toast.
Kill them all. Kill your commander, kill everybody, and then contact the Ukrainians and say, we want to get the hell out of here. We'll bring all our equipment. We'll bring whatever papers we have. But they don't do that.
No, it's going to end up like that.
Well, Russians are fatalists, and they make videos that they send home saying we're all going to die, and then they go out and die. It's an amazing sort of thing.
Well, at least they keep their word.
It's been 3 years. The propagandists are still talking about how they're going to march into Berlin. They're going to cross the Atlantic and
now they have these animations of the nuclear targets in Europe with the thing. We have animations too.
What?
They have these animations they put on the Russian TV of what it would look like a nuclear attack in Europe with all the parabolic lines hitting Paris and London, and we can do that too, and you wouldn't like it because we have 2 targets in Russia.
Well, that's the thing. All we need to do is flatten St. Petersburg and Moscow, and that's the end.
And that's the end of it.
Also, okay, all these people terrified about a nuclear war, they don't understand the defensive technology that we've created. My guess is that we have the ability to intercept Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles when they're going up in the air. That's what I
Oh,
would.
yeah. We can, and we do, and we have enough destructive power in our submarines
In our submarines.
in forward deployment to obliterate every fucking silo in Russia and Moscow and St. Petersburg, just, you know, to be on the shore side. And
Yeah.
we can do that with our submarine fleet alone.
Well, see, okay. If you go back and you look at movies, The Hunt for Red October, there's another one that was made with this Irish actor who does the best American accent I've ever heard. He was a submarine commander, and it was one of these totally wild scenarios that only a Hollywood screenwriter would come up with. That there was a coup in Russia, and the Russian president was being held at this base, and so this American submarine got into the Russian base. The submarine was full of Navy SEALs, and we rescued the Russian president and took him by submarine to Paris or something, where he gave a speech and he told the army to stand down. It's been a coup. I'm still your president. And we averted a nuclear war. Deeply silly movie, but really fun to watch.
I'm so glad I didn't see it.
Well, see, okay, the movie was presenting the Russians, not the Soviets, but the Russians, as being on a par with us in every level.
Yeah.
And there was a sub commander that we'd rescued. His Russian sub had been bombed by his own people, and he was in this little escape capsule. We rescued him, and so when the American commander tried to talk to him, he said, "Fuck you, Yankee." And so we managed to talk sense into him, but he had trained all the anti-submarine Russian ships that were above, and so he was telling us, we're all going to die. These are the best men in the world, and it was being presented with a straight face.
Yeah.
Russian anti-submariners are the best in the world because they're Russian, and
Russian submariners are the largest casualty inflicted by Russian submarines on anybody.
well, that's the thing that
They're death traps.
when the Kursk went down, the reason the Kursk went down is because the Russians insist on using a torpedo technology that we abandoned in World War II.
Yeah, because it lets water in.
Well, it blows up. It lets poison. It lets hydrogen escape, and then the hydrogen poisons the crew and then blows up. And when the Kursk went down, everybody in the world offered Putin help, and he said, "We don't need your help." And so days later, when the survivors were all dead. Oh, and remember, the mother of one of the sailors was like shouting questions at Putin, and these men approached her with a hypodermic, and they sedated her right in front of the cameras.
Yeah, and if you open your mouth again, we're gonna use polonium, bitch. It's I don't know why, because I know why the American press is enamored with the Russians, because they love anybody who opposes the U.S.
Exactly.
The American press was enamored of Fidel Castro.
Yep.
Hollywood has been having a love affair with Maduro for the longest time. These fucking idiots have already eaten their pets, and we're still having to put up with what's this ball of lard from Flynn?
Oh yeah, Michael Moore.
Michael Moore. I mean, or what about that Irish retard who used to hump Madonna? What's his name? Sean Penn.
Sean Penn.
Uh, all of these retards telling us, how the health system in uh, uh, in Cuba is the best in the world. Yeah, sure. Uh, so much so that Fidel ended up importing a team from Spain to correct the errors that the locals did on his esophagus. Um, do you remember what this fucking imbecile did?
Who, Sean?
No, Fidel Castro.
What?
He had esophageal cancer.
Hmm.
So they cut off his esophagus and sawed his pylorus to his throat. Are you getting me on this one?
Hmm.
Okay. Of course, he was dying, and that's when they brought in the Spanish doctors to fix the fixing, which amazingly they did. I thought he was a goner when I found out what they were doing. Um, all of these idiots um, see in anybody who is opposed to the U.S. a friend, and they don't look under the hood. I'm pretty damn sure they never even bothered to take a look at how it actually worked.
No, of course not. Of course not. I mean, Michael Moore went to Cuba and they had a Potemkin hospital to show him, and he went, "My God, this is brilliant."
Yeah, they have one hospital in Havana that is used exclusively for foreigners
Hmm.
who do health trips to Havana to be treated for a number of illnesses, most of them totally fucking hopeless. Um, but the Cuban propaganda in South America, in particular, spread the word that the Cubans have a cure for glaucoma. They cure cancer with shark cartilage.
Ah,
I'm not making this shit up. This is not a hyperbolic statement. No, they have found a cure for cancer, which is a derivative of shark cartilage. So people with brain tumors, inoperable, go to Cuba for treatment, and all of them fucking die.
no, they come back and they say, "I'm cured." Clunk.
And then the Cubans say, "Well, he waited too long to come
Yeah,
here,"
yeah, yeah.
and it is one of the main sources of income for Cuba, fleecing the desperate morons who have to choose between homeopathy and acupuncture and Cuba to cure their incurable disease.
Well, I
That's
mean,
the hospital that Michael Moore went to.
and look at Michael Moore. Michael Moore is a health disaster on 2 feet. I mean, he's been morbidly obese for his entire adult life, and there was a biography written about him, and he would polish off a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts at one sitting. That's like 400
Yeah,
calories per donut. So do the math.
yeah, it's okay. Sarah is saying pills of snake to cure cancer. To be more specific, they call it crotoxina. Has a scientific name,
Hmm.
and it is a distillation of snake venom. Snake oil.
Yeah.
They cure cancer with fucking snake oil. But they have the most advanced medicine in the world.
Well,
Imbeciles.
South Americans to this day view hospitals as places where you go to die. So,
Well, that's what they are down there.
yeah. And South Americans aren't very much into preventive care. Um, when you have a problem, you wait until it's you're in agony or you can't walk or whatever, and then you go to the
Yeah,
hospital. And that's
but that's because 90% of the population does not have access to medicine or a doctor.
mm-hmm. I,
So
I'm I,
by the time they get treatment, they're already playing the harp for practice.
Well,
And
even in this country, in this state, for example, you're not allowed to ask for somebody's legal status at a hospital. You're guaranteed treatment. And
yes,
I took my brother. My brother had an umbilical hernia, and they fixed it using this plastic mesh that they
yeah,
inserted an incision. And during the process of inserting it, they punctured his intestine. So
oops,
several hours later, he had a systemic infection, and
yeah,
we took him to the hospital, and they were they were treating us in order of arrival, and so they were seeing people who spoke only Spanish. They're seeing them for headaches. They're seeing them for stuffed nose. This is the emergency room.
yeah,
So my brother was in agony, and so finally I told him, "Okay, brace yourself." I called another hospital. They said, we do the same way. So I told him, "All right, see all those empty desks with the computers over there. I'm going to go pick up a computer. I'm going to throw it across the room." So I stood up and I went over and I was about to pick up the computer, and this nurse looked at me and his face went white, and he beckoned to me and he said, what's up? I said, "My brother's dying." And so they saw him and then they immediately rushed him up into surgery. And he spent 3 weeks in the hospital. They used every known antibiotic except for the last two, and it was the third from the end that cured his systemic infection. But when I went to see him, he was hallucinating. He was telling
well,
me,
he was going to die of sepsis any time by
yeah,
that time. Yeah,
they told me he was going to die. I went in there knowing that what they'd said, and he told me later that I never gave any kind of impression that I had received this news. But he was telling me that the Air Force was patrolling the hallways with guard dogs, and that someone had set up a bowling alley in the room next to him, and all this, and I was just kind of going, "Oh, wow, that's pretty amazing." But he recovered. But the only reason, okay, and to the end of the story, he went to the doctor, and the doctor actually zeroed out all the medical bills. He racked up over $1 million in expenses, and the doctor zeroed it all out. And then they stopped using that mesh because it always punctured people's intestines. So there's
that's why they zeroed it out.
exactly. No, I mean,
Yeah,
um, we didn't speak to a lawyer initially. We spoke to the doctor, and he felt like shit, and he did zero everything out, and he was just grateful that we're not a litigious family.
yeah, that you're not suing. Yeah,
But all of this happened because they were seeing people who spoke only Spanish
yeah.
for non-emergency ailments, and
Yes, and
um,
that's what all the illegals do here. I mean, the illegals use the emergency room as the local clinic,
yeah, exactly.
and you see it all of the time. And then we're stupid enough to put signs. The average waiting time in the ER 15 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 minutes, 16 hours, so that we guide them to the lesser wage. But why the fuck do we have that? Why are we doing this? It doesn't make any sense. It
Well,
would
the
be cheaper.
Democrats
It,
want, uh huh.
it would be cheaper to pay these fuckers a visit at the urgent care.
Well, I mean, don't ask me. There's no rationality involved in any of this because, you know, here in Venice Beach, Venice Beach was overrun by violent illegal aliens, and they're interviewing people who. One woman had a sofa tossed in her yard and then soaked in gasoline and set on fire. And she was saying, I know they come from very unfortunate, and they come from these terrible places, but, and it's like, you're hopeless. You're hopeless. You've been brainwashed
Yeah,
into accepting this savage behavior from savages, and you feel bad about saying, well, I don't want a sofa set on fire in my front yard in Venice Beach. And it's like, take a look at your property values, you idiot.
They have to do far less to upset me. Some time ago, I had to pick somebody up at the Miami. A friend of mine from Spain was coming to visit, and I had to go to the Miami International Airport to pick him up. So I pick him up. I go to the parking lot, get into my car, come out, and as I come out, there is like a fucking demonstration in there. Nobody's moving. Everybody is ululating in the middle of the road. Uh, and and finally, I open the window and says, "What's going on?" And somebody turns out to be and says in Spanish, "Oh, we're celebrating. She just came in from Cuba." In the middle of the fucking road,
Mm-hmm.
in an airport at rush hour.
Mm-hmm.
So just as he says, she just came in from Cuba, we're celebrating. Well, tell her to get the fuck back there. She has only just arrived and it's already busting my chops.
Yeah.
Fuck off, all of you, or I'm gonna run over you. And suddenly, oh, he's the angry gringo, Uh, yes, I am. Fuck off. I
Well,
mean, what do you think this is? Fucking Havana, you fucking idiot.
okay. This last election, illegal immigration and crime committed by illegal immigrants was a factor. It was a huge factor. And the Democrats ran on abortion and Trump is Hitler.
Yeah.
And okay, Trump ended up getting, what was it, 30% of the black vote, which is staggering considering, his first time around, he got, I think, 7%. And he got half of the Hispanic vote. And I've seen all these postmortems done by leftists, and they can't understand it because they think that all Hispanic people are illegal aliens. They're saying, don't you understand that Trump is going to deport you? And it's like, baby cakes, the people who voted are American citizens. They're not going anywhere.
45% of the Hispanics voted for Trump. Guess what, you idiot? And frankly, there are, number one, there is a large percentage of so-called Hispanics, you know how I feel about the term, who are American citizens and love this country and are committed to the new life as Americans, and they don't want this to go to shit. They don't want this to become the shitholes they left. Then there are the permanent residents who worked their ass off to come to this country legally. In some cases, they had to wait for years to normalize their situation and get their fucking green card, which is not green anymore, but it doesn't matter. And who resent the notion, and nobody gave them shit. And when they got the green card, they didn't get government aid. They didn't get shit. Actually, for 5 years after getting the green card, they were not entitled to any kind of assistance, even if legitimate in origin. No food stamps, no SSA, no shit. Fuck it, nothing. And now they see that these people smelling of ass are coming through the border and getting all the benefits that were denied them, and they are now paying for. And they don't like it one fucking bit.
Yeah, I guess somebody did the math for illegals in New York City, and it works out to like if illegals take everything that New York City is offering them, each illegal is getting like 200 grand a year.
Yes. Yes. All the money that New York has spent on illegal aliens in the past year in hotels, in meals, in transportation, in
Healthcare.
shelters, in healthcare, in the billions. So much so that the city is complaining it's run out of money. We don't have any more money for this. 85,000 illegals.
Yeah. No, and they're
You,
giving.
you, you give each one of those fuckers 100 grand a year,
Yeah, I mean it's
and,
billions.
and, and that's 150 million. So shut the fuck up and don't tell, because of course all that money is going into the pockets of Democrats in New York. It's going to the daughter of the Democratic judge who is the CEO of a non-profit that cares for immigrants. It's going to the niece of the governor who runs another non-profit to feed the immigrants. Eh, and they keep the money.
Of course.
They don't spend it anything. Talking about money laundering.
Well,
This is
Californians voted to tax themselves an extra half-cent sales tax to help the homeless after Los Angeles County, the city of Los Angeles, and the state of California all came to the conclusion that they couldn't account for something in the order of like $30 billion
right.
been allocated to help the homeless, and it's all gone. They don't know where. They have nothing to show for it. And California said, well, obviously you need more money, and you voted.
30 fucking billion. They could have bought an apartment to each homeless in Manhattan Beach.
Yeah. No, I mean, Californians.
So it's not technically money laundering, but it is a circle of corruption.
Yeah,
And that's what's keeping it alive.
of course.
So many of these assholes are making bank on this. And that's one thing that the Trump administration will have to finish off.
Yep.
This is even more important than the deportations.
Sure.
Deportations should come, mind you. You're in this country illegally committing a crime, and if the Mexicans don't want them back, drop them with a parachute in Mexico City. I don't care.
Well, I heard that Trump and
Sorry, Doña Sara. I know you live in Mexico City, but you understand.
Well, I heard that Trump and President Scheinbaum, or whatever her name is, what's her name?
President Shiny bum.
Shiny bum.
Yeah,
I heard they had a conversation about the Mexicans cutting off illegal immigration in order to avoid tariffs. So.
Yeah, well, bullshit. She's gonna change her discourse 1,700 times. One of the things that Trump asked was for Mexico to close its southern border to migrant caravans. She's never gonna close the southern border. Mind my words. She may announce she did, but she'll never do it because the amount of money that percolates upward that is collected at the southern border from these people is such that it would cost the Mexican economy somewhere around 5 billion, a sizable chunk of which is her personal take.
Well, the cartels have changed selling drugs is their number two source of income, and the number one source of income is human trafficking to the United States. And all Mexican high level Mexican government officials get a cut of that.
They all get a cut up to the president.
Mm-hmm.
And when you and I discussed Biden's election 4 years ago, I said this asshole is going to transfer $2 to $3 billion a month to the Mexican cartels if he does what he's saying he will do. Mm-hmm. He did. He did. And that at the time was correct. Now it's more like 5 billion a month.
Right.
Because we have to add the women trafficking and the child trafficking. It's and it's a business in Mexico that's more important than the energy business. They get more revenue out of this than they get out of oil,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all money that is not accounted for, and that gives every single government official, from the border guard to the president and everybody in between, a chunk of money every month. They're not going to change that voluntarily. You're going to have to force them. I'm not even sure that tariffs will be effective because they would rather, have a drop in sales of tomatoes to the US than give up their source of income.
Mm-hmm.
So, what can I tell you? By the way, I'd like to take this opportunity. I see that we have about 1,000 viewers right now. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who's watching us tonight at our channel, Quadverum TV in odyssey.com. YouTube, I don't like it, but fuck it. I'm sick and tired of interrupting this. And our two timelines in Twitter, my own, and Thomas here, who, as some imbeciles say there, I have taken over behind his back. Yes. Uh, so here he is. You can ask him. And all of this is free to watch. We spent weeks reading shit so we can sit together and have this conversation on Saturday nights, and it's free to watch. It's not free to prepare. It's not free to run. We need your support, and it is very much appreciated as well. How can you do that? Well, you can come to Odyssey and subscribe. It's free. Um, you can click on support or uh, uh, join as a channel member, or send a few bucks through the chat with a dollar sign, all of which come to the same place. Thank you, Donnie, who just sent a tenner. And if you are in um, Odyssey, if you're in YouTube, you can do that there too, but 45% is going to go to YouTube. So uh, come over to Odyssey and do it here. And if you are in Twitter, you can get a $5 a month subscription, which you can do on my timeline for the moment at the Brother Lie. We haven't set it up because we don't have the qualifications yet to set it up in Thomas's. Hopefully, over time with these videos, we'll get there. And if none of those are satisfactory for you, you can go to quadverum.com/support us and make either a one-time or a monthly contribution to keep our forum and TV channel active. Now that I have shamelessly done my NPR moment asking you for money, thank you so very much. I hope you do. And let's keep talking. And thank you, Deb, for another tenner. And Domino. Oh, my. I have awakened a giant, Thomas.
Oh, it's always nice to do that.
It's always nice. It's always nice, and it's very appreciated. And many of them are frequent contributors to our programs and to our forum. These people put their pockets where their mouth is. So thank you all. And if you're in Twitter, please get a subscription, $5 a month. You're gonna keep enjoying these and some member-only content. And yeah, I was thinking of doing some of your old threads for the members only. Maybe let's see if I can rebuild them enough.
Well,
And Hmm?
I was going to say it's pretty interesting because in the last few days, suddenly Syria has burst into flames. And when I was last on Twitter, I was writing a lot about the Syrian
Yes,
war, doing threads.
and it's prescient.
It's pretty interesting because it's the same actors as
Yes,
were there 5 years ago. And from what we know, the guy who's leading the Islamist group that took over most of Aleppo, his name is Al-Julani, which means the Syrian, and
yes,
his group is called Hayat al-Tahrir al-Sham, and he's a really interesting guy because every Islamist group he ever headed, it ended up being completely destroyed, and he managed to get out scot-free every time. And now, when he appears to give interviews, he appears in Western dress. He wears a suit and a tie, and
yeah,
it's unclear how Islamist this group really is. I have no doubt that the foot soldiers are Islamist,
yeah.
but I've had a feeling for years now. This guy was captured by the Americans in 2003, and he was released without explanation. And I have a feeling that he's a Saudi agent, because the Saudis play the long game, and what's happening now is that his group took most of Aleppo, and then the Syrian Democratic Forces and the Free Syrian Army and a couple of other groups.
And the Syrian Kurds,
the Syrian Kurds, they've joined in the fight. A couple of days ago, it was announced that Assad had fled to Moscow, and now everybody's saying we have no idea where he is. I heard tonight that his brother launched a military coup using the Syrian Arab Army, which is Assad's own force.
Assad's own forces, the official army.
And you told me that the Russians are now bombing the rebels.
Yeah, the Russians are bombing Aleppo, and their planes are taking off from Iran. Isn't this lovely? Apparently, they didn't have anything else there. They have also abandoned all of their bases in Deir ez-Zor and all that jazz, and concentrated their forces. Which, by the way, doesn't it make it easier to target them? Concentrating all of their forces in one base by the Mediterranean.
They're
running.
In 2017, okay, see, the HTS, Hayat al-Tahrir al-Sham, this is the second time they've done this. They were located in Idlib province, which is in northwest Syria.
Yes.
And in 2017,
where they had Turkish support.
No, actually, the Turks supported the National Liberation Front, which contained the most horrifically violent Islamists who were essentially indistinguishable from the Islamic State. And these guys went into Idlib province, and everybody said HTS is done. And one day, HTS launched 21 simultaneous offensives, and they completely wiped out, to a man, all of the Turks' little Islamist proxies. They're all dead. And this time, everybody had said that the Syrian Arab Army had HTS on the ropes. HTS launches another offensive, and it takes Aleppo, which is a gigantic
citadel of Aleppo.
It takes Aleppo in 48 hours. And
you know, in Syria, how pregnant with significance is the taking of the citadel of Aleppo.
The last battle for Aleppo lasted for 4.5 years.
And demolished the town.
They demolished the town. HTS took it in 48 hours.
Yep. And they're marching on Damascus now.
That's what I heard. They're marching on. Okay, what? Let me just look up the big city.
And yes, the Turks are supporting them with their air force.
Now they are, yes. Let's see.
I remember the Syrian Kurds were upset of that Turkish connection some time ago.
Okay, Hama. I think Hama has already fallen. Aleppo and Damascus. So, yeah, this is really amazing.
No, and you know what it means. Somebody saying in the chat. By the way, people, I only read the chat in Odyssey. So if you're in YouTube or in Twitter and you're putting comments, maybe I'll get to them later. But in this interaction, we're only following the chat in Odyssey, and you have the link there in the descriptions that you can come to. Where was it? All those assholes who speak about the supposed geopolitical genius of Putin, such idiots. Yeah, you're absolutely correct, my friend. Because now Russia and Iran are just about, apparently, to lose an important ally that gave them it gave Iran a connection with the Mediterranean through Syria and Lebanon. Now Hezbollah in Lebanon is on the ropes, and Syria apparently it's getting there. So Iran will be completely isolated from the Mediterranean and their source of income from Hezbollah in the Americas. Russia is going to see its bases in Syria compromised. I wouldn't be surprised if as a consequence of this push, they lose their two air bases and Tartus.
Oh, yeah.
They're getting pounded.
Yep.
They're getting pounded. That fucking idiot Putin, when he invaded Ukraine, I'm sure he had no fucking idea the kind of mistake he was making. We knew it. We said it was fucking crazy on his part.
Well, what I never understood about Putin, in 2008, Putin gave an interview in which he said that it wasn't important for the Russians to actually have a powerful military. All they had to have was the impression of a powerful military.
Yes.
Which Putin knew that his military was crap. And then he goes and he invades Ukraine with a military that he apparently at the time either knew it was crap and didn't care, or he forgot that he'd once known that it was crap.
Or he thought that his rebuilding the military had been a success.
That's also the case.
When in fact it only enriched officers.
It's really mind-boggling how inept Putin has turned out to be. That he managed to convince the two most neutral countries in Europe with a long history of neutrality to say, fuck it, I want to join NATO.
Yep.
He managed to completely destroy the mystique of the Russian armed forces. He managed to bankrupt the country. He managed to tank the economy. He basically
destroy the infrastructure.
He basically made Russia a potential slave of China, depending on how China does in the future. China's got its own problems.
Yep.
It is the weirdest thing. It's like this.
By the way, even China told Putin to shut up with the nuclear shit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's really astonishing the whole form over substance that all these people, every dictator, with the exception of I guess Hitler, and even Hitler, the German armed forces, their biggest enemy wasn't the Russians or the Allies, it was Hitler, because Hitler was he was a Putin-esque idiot. He made personal decisions that cost the Nazis the war in Russia.
Like sending motorcycles to North Africa, to the Sahara.
Or giving the order that troops never engage in a retreat, that you fight to the last man. So by 1943, the Nazis had lost all their best men because they'd fought to the death. And they never recovered from that. So here we have someone like Trump. Trump is what you would call a dove, but he's a dove wearing a mailed fist. He's a dove that understands you can only be a dove if you have the most deadly armed forces in the world. And
peace is through strength, my friend.
Exactly.
And he learned that from Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
I need to check something. I'll be right back, but please don't stop your line of discussion, because hopefully I can listen to you while I'm doing this.
All right. Yeah. I don't understand this whole form over substance stuff that Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi was all about image, and he ended up in a storm pipe with a bayonet up his butt. Putin is going to be lucky if he gets out of Russia alive. The Russians are possibly going to end up doing a Mussolini on Putin, and God, this is so weird. There we go. I have to start combing my mustache. I'm going to trim all of this. It's too big, but I'm just too lazy right now. So you'll see me with a much smaller head in the future. But I don't understand. Kamala Harris has 3 months to campaign, and she creates this Potemkin campaign where everything is scripted, everything's fake. They're lying about Trump, but they're lying in a way that is absolutely unconvincing. And they're telling people that what they're experiencing for themselves isn't actually happening. So they're telling people the economy is great. You're not paying more for food. You're paying less for food. Well, that's not going to work. That's not going to make people say, you know what? She's right. I'm paying less for food. No, you're going to say, what the fuck are you talking about? You cow, you alcoholic bum. Of course I'm paying more for food. I heard somebody talk about how the Biden administration was touting Wall Street as a sign of the great economy. Well, I'm an investor, and when Biden took office, my investment income dropped by a third, and it has stayed down by a third until Trump won the election. Now it's creeping its way back up. So I wasted 4 years. The way I invest is I invest, and I use part of what I make from my investments to live on, and I put the rest back into the principal, and I grow the principal. I haven't been able to do that for 4 years. I wasn't able to do that for 8 years under Obama. So collectively, these bastards have cost me 12 years of investment income. So, you know, Wall Street's high numbers, they don't mean anything. You can have Wall Street going great, but investors still making much less money than they were making before. And, I'm not a huge investor. I invest enough to live on, but I've had to tighten my belt for 4 years. And there aren't going to be too many more of these. I spent 12 years. I sacrificed 12 years. I didn't sacrifice. 12 years of my life was taken by Obama and Biden. And I'm at the age now where this can't happen again. I've already the way I was living before. I've tightened my belt, and I'm much better off than a lot of people, and I'm much worse off than a lot of people. But to have these idiots tell me that I'm not experiencing what it is I'm experiencing, and thinking that that's going to work and it's going to make me vote for them.
Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?
Well, it's jaw dropping. It's really, really jaw dropping. Like what were you people thinking? What were you people thinking? This whole debacle, starting with choosing a man who has dementia, and he wins
because who campaigned from a basement without talking to anybody.
Right. He didn't win on his own. He got a little help. And then he's a catastrophic president. Then they say, you know what? We're going to shove you out regardless of what the voters said. So they generate incredible ill will doing that. They replace him with an even bigger idiot who very stupidly comes out and says, I worked my butt off to get this. I spent a whole day making phone calls. Really? Wow, you poor thing. You must be exhausted. I don't know. It's the sheer lack of self-awareness of these people.
They still cannot believe that they lost the election.
No.
They outspent Trump 4-1.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
And these people who keep telling you that money buys elections, this is the second one they cannot buy. Hillary outspent Trump 2-1. Now they outspent Trump 4-1. Apparently, who spends the most is not necessarily the guy who wins. And I maintain, Thomas, that Trump won by a much wider margin than is being reported.
Yeah, and they didn't learn anything from 2016.
They didn't learn anything from 2016, and they learned from 2020, and they put it to practice this time. They just could not overturn the presidential election, but God, they gave us a couple of black eyes on the congressional, on the down ballot elections. Mm-hmm. They've stole several representatives and a couple of senators at least. Mm-hmm. And Trump, I look at New Hampshire, and New Hampshire should have been another 4 for the 316 electors for Trump. There is no way that these people elected a Republican governor with 200,000-300,000 votes more than they elected a Democratic senator who's an ass. How did not a senator? A senator who's an ass, and Trump didn't win the state. How is that possible?
Well, Democrats got a Democrat. They did what they do best.
Yeah. So, and The profligacy of the Harris campaign, why would it be otherwise? The only thing Democrats know how to do and do well is spend other people's money.
Mm-hmm.
That they know how to do. They'll find creative ways to waste your moolah, whether it is an election or government.
Well, it used to be said that government wastage wasn't enough for us to be really worried about, but
It is.
it is. And I believe that Musk and Ramaswamy are going to deliver, and I think we're going to see massive change, because those are two men who really want to do this.
Yes, and they want to do it from outside the government, because the so-called Department of Government Efficiency is not a department of government, and their positions are not government positions, and they're not going to be confirmed by anybody.
Mhm.
They're going to be acting as advisors
Mhm.
to the president, essentially. So by doing it outside of government, I think they're going to have a lot more leeway. I just hope they do this. You know, because you and I have discussed this on air and off air for a number of years now, that I'm not particularly worried about the American debt, the public debt. I think it's peanuts. That I'm not particularly worried about the strength of the dollar. I think the world has no other options. And I do think that if there is a way to reduce the debt, it should be reduced as a percentage of GDP by doubling GDP.
Mhm.
The way out of any perceived conundrum here is growth.
And Trump is promising a golden age like we can't yet imagine. And you hear people poo-pooing it. I believe him. I believe that now that he finally has everything he needs for at least 2 years, and it'll likely be 4. I think we will see. I think he's not going to shilly-shally at all. I think he's going to work as president the way he worked as a campaigner. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, both feet running when he hits the ground.
Well,
and I
okay,
think
his
he
brand.
does have a sense of urgency.
What?
I believe that he does have a sense of urgency. That he wants this to be done. He wants to be the guy who did this.
Yeah. And also, Trump's a human being, so I'm sure he's looking forward to cutting the legs out from under everybody who did what they did to him for the past 8 years. I would be. If I were Trump, I would take a lot of pleasure in having Nancy Pelosi come crawling to me, begging me to stop, and having me say, "There's the door, goodbye."
He already has. The longest line in the world today is the line of people standing to get into Mar-a-Lago to kiss his balls.
Sure.
Every journalist, politician, that idiot Trudeau last night came on his knees in peregrination to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring, kiss the balls, and beg for leniency.
Yeah.
Okay, he might be lenient, but that doesn't mean we're not going to stop illegal immigration coming in from Canada, asshole.
Mm-hmm.
You want to open Canada to every jihadist in the world? Fine, you eat them.
Yeah.
We should consider the infiltration of any jihadist from Canada to the U.S. as an act of war. Let's see how it happens. And
go ahead.
You know about Joe Scarborough and his meretricious wife?
Of course.
The retarded daughter of Zbigniew Brzezinski. eh, they went over there to bend over, grab the ankles, and beg for mercy.
Hmm.
A lot of them are going to have to. I don't think Pelosi has the gumption to do it.
No.
Too bad for her. Too bad for her. She's going to be ridiculed into oblivion. Oh, God. I think Trump deserves that satisfaction, you know.
Hmm.
I think he's gonna sit comfortably at the door of the White House. You know how the saying goes: sit in your Porsche,
Hmm.
and eventually you'll see the corpse of your enemy on the way to the cemetery. There is a Spanish saying to that effect,
Hmm.
and it's true. Eventually, your enemies are mortal too. Uh, he's gonna watch the political cadavers of a lot of people float by the Potomac.
Well, this is what's so weird about all of this is that the 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 change is really, it's really in the air. It's like people, Trump's opponents seem to be giving up rather than gearing up for another fight.
Some of them are just taking a breather and they're gonna gear up again. I don't think they're gonna be doing too well. Um,
Well, they've already the lawfare specialists have already admitted that they're not going to be able to do. They're not going to be able to stop the Trump agenda through frivolous lawsuits this time around.
no, no, this time around they're gonna be blasted out of the water. Um, I would love to see a lot of personal lawsuits against them.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see what's his name. Oh God, I am having a brain fart. Um, Lawfare specialist for the Democrats in election matters.
Oh yeah,
Former
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I
big
don't remember his name
election.
either.
Hmm?
I don't remember his name either.
No, maybe because I don't want to, because I consider him a nobody. But this fucker, I want him to go through what Giuliani went through
Definitely.
and worse.
Yep.
I want these people to experience in their bones what they put Sidney Powell through.
Yep.
This idea of ruining by lawfare uh, lawyers who did nothing but their job as
Mm-hmm.
officers of the court.
Mm-hmm.
There is a principle, a legal principle in this country, that everybody deserves a defense. Everybody deserves the best defense that can be given them. Without it, we don't have a judicial system worth shit. Uh, like when John Adams defended the British soldiers accused of the Boston Massacre in 1775, to
Mm-hmm.
the chagrin of many, and got him acquitted to boot. Uh, yeah, Mark Elias.
Mark Elias.
Mark Elias is an asshole who's caused more damage to American democracy than any single person ever in its history. I want him to pay. I understand he's already broke
Oh, that's good.
because he's been doing very, very, very fucking poorly and hasn't made back the money invested in the last few cases. But I want him taking a job in McDonald's to pay his legal fees. I really do. I feel like Shylock. I want the pound of flesh. I fear, however, that Trump doesn't. I fear that he does not want his pound of flesh.
Well, it's one of those things where, I mean, Trump is very unpredictable. So I don't know. I couldn't say. I can't say what he's going to do.
Yeah. I see a lot of people here talking about the possibility that Elon may buy MSLSD. By the way, people, what do you do? You don't have a brain of your own. All of your ideas come from Twitter. Now that Elon Musk bought Twitter, he must be the guy to buy everything that comes up for sale because you cannot think of anybody else. Did you think of Lauren Jobs when the Atlantic went up for sale? Did you think of Jeff Bezos when the Washington Post went belly up? Did you think of the communist bastards who bought Newsweek at auction? No, you didn't. There is no reason for Elon Musk to buy anything else unless, of course, he wakes up one morning and decides he wants a new toy. Where are the conservative millionaires and billionaires? Where is the Republican Party that could raise the necessary funds and create an entity to own MSLSD? Where are all the multiple options that should be there? And why aren't they there? And oh, well, legacy media is gone. Why would anybody buy that? Because they set the narrative, people.
Yep.
I don't care if Richard Madcow has 500,000 viewers or 10,000. Whatever the fuck Richard Madcow says in that cesspool of a channel is repeated by every newspaper in the land, by every news agency, by every other news channel on a regular basis. And it aids in setting the narrative. Why do you think 45% of this godforsaken country voted for a retarded bitch with no qualifications to run a McDonald's? Media is important. All media is important. And no, Twitter has not replaced media. As a matter of fact, Twitter is used by an infinitesimal portion of the population. So don't buy all the Twitter hype. They're not as important as they think they are. Father Chris, Elon might buy Hasbro to rescue Dungeons and Dragons for the woke tendrils. Yes, I like that one, by the way. I think it's a much better investment and a much nobler cause. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Yep, that's an old Jesuit saying. It goes back 400 years. And it's true. Lie, something will stick. So, guys, it's like, ease up a little bit with the Twitter shit. Thomas, we discussed this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sick and tired of Twitter.
Exactly.
I am. I'm honestly, it's a chore. It's a fucking chore just to check the messages and reply to some of them. And my patience, I had a follower today, some kakamimi shit about the rabbi doing numerology on pages of the Bible to interpret what Trump is going to do. I mean, come on, really, very important, very important. So this, don't send me this gibberish. I don't give a shit about this shit. Don't tag me anymore with this crap. It's a distraction. Well, no, it's not crap. It's important. So, listen, I ask you not to tag me anymore.
Can you please
It's like, please
fast?
don't. Well, but I thought it was going to be important for you as for the third fucking time. What part of do not tag me don't you understand? Read it again, slowly. Make sure you understand and don't do it again. Well, I don't want to this because you're my favorite in beer blather. So if you're looking, you know this. Uh, I watch beer blather all the time, but I love you guys. And I said, okay, have it your fucking way. And I blocked the fucker.
Well, I mean, what else are you supposed to do?
And the thing is, oh, David Galvan is saying in the chat, that was a nice ass pudding Saul gave to that asshat. It was one of my kindest, gentlest ass puddings because I didn't think he was a son of a bitch. I thought he was an idiot. But the thing is, between the people with good intentions that pester you with bullshit and the assholes who want you to admit publicly or will flog you that Zelensky is a Nazi and we have no business helping Ukraine, I just fucking had it.
Well, this is the thing that when I hear somebody, they use terms like another forever war. It's like, okay, you just lost me.
There we go. Yeah, no, I don't want to hear anymore. I was invited to a broadcast with a number of people. I went out of curiosity, if you will. They had Milo Yiannopoulos, who's crazier than he ever was.
Sure.
The only positive thing about Milo is that with that biting humor and vengefulness of any good, splendid queer, he's destroying Laura Loomer.
Sure.
And that, I forgive him a lot of sins just for that entertainment. And there were other people in there. I don't want to give names. And one of them says, we cannot even absorb the number of illegals in this country. I said, of course we can. The question is not whether we can or not, is whether we should.
Mm-hmm.
But you think very poorly of the US if you think we cannot absorb 10 million immigrants. Or 15, I don't care. Throughout our history, we've had a larger percentage of foreign-born population in this country than we do today. Why did I say that? An asshole from Miami. How dare you say that? Of course we cannot absorb them. How can you support illegal immigration? And I'm thinking to myself, how the fuck is a statement of fact an expression of support?
Well,
and oh, by the way, it's not illegal immigration, asshole. If it is illegal, it's not immigration.
Well, I mean, people are they're all charged up. They're ready to fight, and they're not going to listen. I don't know. I just it isn't for me. When I was back on Twitter, I either got people who they wanted to fight, or I got people who they're like little kids. You know how a little kid, you tell a story, and then the little kid, when they're going to bed, they'll say, "Tell me the story about the Easter Bunny again." And so I'd have to repeat myself over and over and over and over
and over again. And how long before you get bored to tears?
Well, I'm just too cranky now. I'm too impatient. I can't do it anymore.
No, you mean you don't have the guru disposition?
No, Jesus God, that was like the last thing I wanted. It's like against my will, I became a guru, and it was just like, holy shit, I can't deal. I cannot deal. So
no, that's right. Terry is apologizing for tagging me with a picture of Jill Biden in fishnet stockings. You don't have to apologize, Terry. It was very welcomed. It was quite a laugh at the time. Wow. But oh God. So I don't know, Thomas. It's a lot of people are saying, and maybe they are trying to convince themselves that they're not wasting their time. But I increasingly have a feeling that I am wasting my time there.
Well, the reason I stopped posting on Twitter was because there was what we're talking about tonight. There was no learning curve, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to be the guy that people came flocking to. Tell me what this means. Tell me what that means. I didn't want that.
No,
I was just sort of commenting and hoping that people would sort of do their own
their own research.
their own research, their own investigations, and it never happened. There were a tiny handful. They were all women for some reason, and they got really interested in weaponry and battle damage assessment and all that. And aside from them, it never really happened, and I just got tired. It was sort of
I am too. Father Chris misses Thomas's threads more than most. Learned a lot. Syrian war is the prime example. Yes. See what happens when you don't value it at the time. How about people still do it to me, and my answer is still the same. Can you talk about this? I don't do requests. I talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about. If you want me to talk about something, pay me.
Yeah. No, I mean that's I years ago I used to go to these First World War forums, and everybody was super hostile and weird. And I did meet a French guy who was a really nice guy, and at some point we were talking about knowledge and everything, and he said, don't give away your knowledge, put it in a book and sell it. You're these people are all jerks. They're going to buy your books anyway, so just write books and don't try to reach them because you won't be able to. I don't know. It was a real eye-opening experience, because I never thought that historians would have this level of hostility toward new ideas, but they sure did.
You do. Actually, they're some of the worst.
Well, this is the thing, that they're territorial. It's really
like jealous mistresses,
Yep.
And and people all the time. By the way, about half the people in Twitter now are telling other people to get their blue check and pay the $8.
Wow.
And I said, I'm sorry, but unless Elon pays me a commission, say 20% of what I raise, the fuck if I'm gonna be doing sales work for him.
Sure.
But what is this shit? Why should people register if they don't want to? Why should they register if they don't have enough money?
Well,
why should they assume another $100 expense for the year? And why should I pressure them to do so? I don't get it. But now they're all soldiers for Elon. They're a bunch of ass-kissing bastards is what they are. Everybody wants to kiss Elon's arse today, just as much as they want to kiss Trump's ring.
Well, this is the issue with conservatives, is that they tend to fall in love with political figures, and that's nothing good will come from that.
No, no. I thought that personality cult was a dominion of the collectivist left.
It I've learned to my dissatisfaction that it's actually it's on our side. And I don't get it. I like Trump, but I'm not in love with him.
And if he fails to perform, I'm not going to say I'll turn on him, but I'm okay. He failed to perform. Who else is there?
Well, exactly.
I'm not going to turn on him, but I'm not going to give a shit anymore.
Well, that's the thing, that if he turns out to be a BS artist, a con artist, then it's like, well, that's on him.
Pity. I actually believe he could do it, but that's the end of it. It's. I don't have a spurned lover's reaction to that thing like some of these assholes do.
No, and see, that was another issue with social media, with Twitter. When I was debunking Pallywood, oh boy, I had so many Jewish and Israeli fans, for lack of a better term. But when somebody asked me, who are you going to vote for, and I said Trump, oh my God, you're a fucking Nazi.
Yeah. All of a sudden, they don't like you anymore.
Yeah, I had to block.
And the next step is the threats.
Well, I had to block over 500 people who used to like me, and that was another eye-opening experience.
Yeah. Have you ever asked anybody? I do every now and then. Listen, asshole, you follow me. I don't follow you. You follow me. That means there is something among the many idiotic things I say that you have an interest in. Why are you pestering me?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I block them. I don't give a shit if they follow me or not.
Well, I just it got really tedious. That's like the best term I can think of. It was just really tedious.
It does.
Yeah.
It gets to be a chore. So right now, I'm kind of like lowering the level. I have no problem continuing to broadcast these things on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
But the fuck if I'm going to engage with any of these imbeciles anymore? I've had it. Somebody comes at me with some kind of trolling, I block them before I finish reading.
Well, I mean, there's no upside unless it's like a hobby. There's no upside in engaging trolls. I mean, one of the
what kind of hobby is that? What kind of hobby is that?
Well, I mean,
instead of mud wrestling, it's shit wrestling.
But see, okay, the people who they started out or they ended up on channels like 4chan or 8chan, where their whole purpose in life is to cause discomfort, suffering, and pain to others. I mean, this is what they do 24 hours a day.
You mean like the group?
Well,
like the GRU?
Well, yeah. There was a troubled teenage girl who had been a great student and got along fine with her parents. And when she hit her teens, she started smoking pot. This is here in California. She started smoking pot and just really started messing up her life. And one day she got high and she stole her father's Porsche and she crashed it at 120 miles an hour. And
yikes.
one of the California Highway Patrol officers took pictures of her exploded head and shared it with his friends, and one of those people posted it online. And so the online trolls started sending that photo to her parents under different phishing type emails. You know, it's a troll. Isn't that an excellent troll? Isn't that an epic, legendary troll? And that's a mindset that I can't even begin to understand. And these are people. My guess is that these are people who are just like these leaden hulks that they have nothing. They have nothing inside. They have no real heart. They have no real brain. They have no real imagination. They don't see any beauty. They don't have a loving partner. They're just these.
They're fucking psychopaths.
But penny ante psychopaths.
Yes, it's like a 7-year-old tying cans to a cat's tail.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Torturing animals.
Yeah.
It's like it's a psychopath in the making.
Yeah,
but a very infantile one.
And see, this is why I always fantasized about the ability to make somebody's computer explode in their face, and send shrapnel flying into the way.
Don't give the Mossad any ideas.
Yeah, I mean, okay, that's another like learning curve. Hezbollah had no learning curve.
No.
Hezbollah.
By the way, I understand that a lot of phones exploded in Assad's army's hands lately.
I see no reason why not. I mean,
yep.
Assad got most of his fighting prowess, such as it is, from Hezbollah and from the Iranians.
Yep.
So Assad, since he's aiding Hezbollah, it's of course logical that the Israelis would get into this current shindig and make sure that Assad is out on his ass, and
hopefully missing a couple of fingers in the process.
Yeah,
I have no doubt that the Israelis are going to take as much advantage of this situation as possible. And it is whatever happens there in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know, Thomas. I have to be honest. I still don't know who's going to end up on top of this one. The Turks, the Syrian Democratic Front, Tahrir al-Sham. I have no idea.
Well,
they're going to fight it off among Turkey.
The thing is, okay, Assad has to go. The most accurate description I heard of him was that he's the arsonist who sells water to the fire department.
Yes.
So Assad has to go. And whatever happens in Syria, if somebody takes control and they want help, not military help, but help rebuilding or whatever, let's talk about it. But we can't. We have a base there. It's Al Tanf or something like that.
Yes, we have 3 bases in Syria.
3 bases, yeah, and everybody leaves us alone. Now, I think the Russians are in no position to help Assad anymore. Last time, when they went into Syria with their air force in 2015, they weren't
at the invitation of Obama. Let's remember that
exactly, and there was nobody shooting down Russian aircraft, and they had aircraft. This time around, the whoever it is shooting down Russian aircrafts. I've seen the videos, and they're just not in a position. Like I heard that Putin promised them military aid. I mean, who's he kidding? Who's he kidding?
Where's he gonna get it?
Exactly, from North Korea. He's going to send North Korean midgets.
Instead of a bitch is begging North Korea for rocket shells.
Yeah,
and he's gonna aid who?
yeah.
I don't know. The Russians, like you and I have been speculating for a while, they're done for. You can stick a fork in these assholes, they're done. As a force intervening all around the world, they're fucking done. They can still play a little bit of hardball in Georgia, and but listen, they're beggars. A large percentage of their foreign currency earnings come from Germany,
Mm-hmm.
who imports Russian shit through Kyrgyzstan. And it's interesting because Kyrgyzstan's imports from Russia just went up 1,000%, and so did Kyrgyzstan exports to Germany. Ta-da! Guess what's going on there?
Yeah.
But they can still throw a little bit of weight around in Georgia, neighboring countries where very little goes a long way. But right now, the people of Georgia are having their own Maidan revolution.
Exactly. And the Russians don't have the ability to go put it down by force.
No. So either the pro-Russian forces in Georgia are strong enough, or they are royally fucked in there too. And that is Georgia wanting to join the European Union and NATO. It's not NATO's expansion. It's Eastern European countries fleeing towards NATO to save their asses from the stupid drunken bear next to them.
And this is what it's always been, Tucker Carlson notwithstanding. NATO has never been expanding. It's been countries begging for entry in order to be protected from Russian antagonism.
Yes. And in this context, it's very little what Russia can do in Syria. Iran can do perhaps even less.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. An Iranian F-14 strayed into Turkish airspace, so the Turks sent an F-4 Phantom to intercept it, and the Turkish pilot was off his rocker. He was doing barrel rolls over the F-14 and everything, and I saw a comment somewhere, and it said it's a flying air museum. It's like,
yes,
it's both of these types are so old. It's shocking.
God, the newest aircraft that Iran has are from the 1960s, and nominally they have 60, I believe, but only 20 are operational because they've been cannibalizing the rest for parts.
Mm-hmm.
They have no air force. Period. And by the looks of it, they don't have much in the way of missiles anymore.
No, and okay, they're not going to send the Iranian army to Syria because the army is basically confined to its barracks. They're going to send the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which has proven time and time again that it can't fight against armed combatants.
No, because they don't recognize them as the enemy. The enemy are students in universities in Tehran.
Exactly.
Students are girls who are not wearing hijabs.
Mm-hmm.
That's the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
An enemy with a uniform and a gun? What the fuck is that?
I think the stupidest thing I ever saw, Western special operators from Europe and the United States, when they operate in the desert, they have these dune buggies, and the dune buggies have been stripped down to basically just the frame, and they're just bristling with machine guns. And Hezbollah proudly made a deal with the Islamic State. The Islamic State got on a bunch of buses and left this promontory, this hill, and then Hezbollah called in the press to show their great victory in taking this hill from the Islamic State. And they had a dune buggy, and the guy in the front passenger seat had a model 1919 American machine gun that it still had grease on it from where they'd taken it out of the warehouse where it had been kept for almost 100 years. It was incredible. It was, and they were showing off. You know, look what we've done. They all had pot bellies. It was ridiculous. And these imbeciles thought they could take on Israel in its full fury and its full dedication.
I don't like to disagree with you, but full fury. If Israel had been in its full fury, there wouldn't be a single fucker left by now.
True, you're right.
And their families.
Yep.
If anything, contrary to the leftist propaganda, Israel has shown constraint and justified by the actions of Hamas and Hezbollah. I do believe that Israel was fully in its right to deport the entire population of Gaza to some desert land east of Syria and be done with it.
Well, see, I don't think it's necessary. The Gazans are now greeting the Israelis in Hebrew. They're going to be like the kind. They're going to be the most well-behaved little puppies you've ever seen in your life.
Fear isn't stupid, is it? That may jolly well be. And Lebanon is a difficult nut to crack.
Yep.
There are many moving parts in there. But in the end, I cannot. The same I could not comprehend any scenario in which Kamala Harris could win an election. I cannot comprehend any scenario in which Coptic Christians in Lebanon do not support Israel outwardly or inwardly. And the same applies to the Druze. And frankly, it's only the small Shia population with ties to Iran and Hezbollah that are a problem. The rest of them may be fearful of intervening without a guarantee of success. But when we get there, they're going to come out.
Here's what I learned when I studied all of this from 2013 to 2018 or 19. There's a hell of a lot of going on that's never really going to get covered. And the only way I figured a lot of this stuff out was by watching tons and tons, hours and hours, days and weeks, cell phone videos where you would just see a glimpse of somebody and you would go, aha. So my guess is there's more than just Israel pounding away at Hezbollah. My guess is the Gulf Arabs have sent their best and most dangerous to Lebanon. And because this is, as Netanyahu said to Biden, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity and we're not going to miss it.
No, and I don't think there's anybody sane in the Middle East who wants to miss this opportunity. This is it. You can get that fucking albatross out of the scenery now. Now is when. Now is the end of the Palestinian question. Now is the end of Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now is the end of Iran in Syria. And while we're at it, now is the end of the mullahs in Iran.
Well, did you see that there was an American rabbi who was murdered in the UAE?
Yes.
And his murderers, they all had Vich in their last name. Their names, where the fuck were they from? Uzbekistan or something like that?
They were Russians.
Well, the UAE, all the UAE political bigwigs went to this guy's funeral.
Yes. And they mobilized the country to get the fuckers. I believe that Turkey delivered them.
Wow.
They had escaped, or at least some of them had escaped to Turkey. And Turkey said, we don't want it here. You have them. Turkey is another thing that we need to discuss one day, because I'm sick and tired of the unicellular brains in Twitter talking about Turkey as an Islamist state and what is it doing in NATO? We need to expel Turkey from NATO. Obviously, these fuckers do not understand shit and know even less.
Well, if we want to never be allowed into the Black Sea ever again, then
that's one. Yeah, they can stop you at the Bosphorus very easily. If you want Turkey allied with Russia and Iran, that would be a good one.
How about Iran? How about Turkey allied with Iran?
Yeah, Turkey allied with Russia and Iran, that would be a great geopolitical strategy. But the thing is, and since we have a couple of minutes, the thing is that, number one, Turkey is not an Islamist state. Turkey is a secular state. You know that eating pork is not illegal in Turkey?
Well, Erdogan is Islamist. Erdogan has been steadily losing power for the last 10 years.
Yes, and the last time he lost Ankara and Istanbul, and Imamoglu is going to be the next prime minister of Turkey. But before we get into that, Erdogan is been using, kind of wink and nod to Islamism, but he's no Islamist.
Well, okay, he's an
actors don't tell me that.
No, he's an imperialist. See, the problem with countries that were once an empire is they always want to reconstruct their empire, with the exception of the Brits. The Brits want to commit suicide. They're different. But
yeah, no, they're different. And Labour wants to commit suicide by cutting off their balls and eating it.
Yep. But the French, the Russians, the Turks, the Chinese, the Japanese don't seem to want to recreate the Japanese empire. But Erdogan, I mean, he's made all these public appearances with people wearing all the armor and uniforms of all Turkey's glory days, that sort of thing. And he knows on a certain level that he's never, I mean, do you remember at some point the Turks were staking a claim on Aleppo? They said that Aleppo belonged to Turkey.
So does Damascus and Cairo, for that matter.
Well, that's the thing.
You want to go? How about Rabat?
Yeah.
How about Baghdad?
Yeah.
All of them were Ottoman cities. You know what? The Ottoman Empire doesn't exist. It cannot be recreated.
Well,
and this is it.
Level.
But on the other hand, Erdogan does not want Russia in Crimea.
Exactly.
It's an interesting thing that most people don't realize. Erdogan is responsible for Russia shoving ships up its ass and able to reinforce the Black Sea Fleet.
Mhm. Which basically no longer exists.
which basically no longer exists because as they were losing ships, they couldn't replace them because Turkey wouldn't allow them through the Bosphorus. Ta-ta! We have important bases in Turkey, like Interlink,
Mhm.
that are essentially forward stations for the US. Fuck NATO. You want to close them down and take the boys out? Really? Is that what we want to do? Not only should Turkey stay in NATO, but had Turkey been allowed to join the European Union in 2005, when they were desperate to join the European Union, Erdogan would have never happened.
Mhm.
One of the reasons that Turks elected Erdogan when they did the first time, a soccer player who used to be a street urchin selling the little pastries mommy made in her apartment kitchen. You know how Turks look upon him? With contempt.
Sure.
Now, why was he elected? Because there was great disillusionment. When Europe essentially told Turkey to go fly a kite, you're not and will never be Europeans. Oh, then we're going to be Asians.
Mhm.
That is what brought Erdogan's socialist party to power. The cycle is almost done. He's wasted. Nobody wants him anymore. Imamoglu is a secularist in the Ataturk school.
Mhm.
And in the meantime, all of these years of Erdogan didn't stop women wearing fucking bikinis at the beach
Yep.
or people eating eggs with fucking bacon for breakfast. Now, many Turks don't eat pork, whether they are religious or not,
Mhm.
because, their tradition is lamb.
Mhm.
Not a lot of Argentinians eat pork because they eat beef, whatever is more plentiful in the land. But if you or I were to go to Istanbul tomorrow, we would have our breakfast with egg, sausage, and bacon. And what kind of Islamist country would allow that?
Yeah, try that in Iran.
Yeah, see how it fares. Try it in Afghanistan. You're gonna end up with the sausage up your ass and the bacon covering the cut in in your neck. So it it's not an Islamist country, and by the way things are painted, it won't be.
Mhm.
It's gonna have a move towards giving it a second round, a second try with Europe, and I hope that this time the intolerant assholes. By the way, do you remember what they did when Turkey wanted to join the EU? They
Mhm.
proposed a constitution that
Mhm.
declared the primacy of Catholicism in Europe. Because Europe has a Catholic identity. Good. I know. Protestant churches in Northern Europe must have been so fucking happy. Why do you think Denmark voted a resounded no to that stupid bill? Um, they're going to try it again, and I hope they fail. Because a Turkey integrated to Europe and a part of NATO is fundamental to keep peace in that area. And Russia out of Crimea. Anyway, we're going to have a bigger conversation on this because I see a lot of anti Turkish sentiment based on fantasy bullshit and prejudice. And you know how I feel about those three. Um, didn't he love Obama? I don't trust Erdogan, says Kelly. Uh, I have news for you 60% of the Turks don't trust Erdogan either. Didn't he love Obama? Sure, he did. Every asshole on the planet loved Obama. But he hated Nancy Pelosi. He still,
Sure.
because Nancy Pelosi has been has made it a point to antagonize the Turks every time we needed to use Incirlik. Isn't that wonderful?
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, what a bitch. Anyway, we're 5 minutes over, Thomas.
Okay.
Shall we go into our last spiel while you think of a last word? And let me see. What am I going to put here? Oh, there you are. Every time you hit support, guaranteed, a Democrat shits his pants. Guaranteed. So if you want Democrats to shit their pants, what can I tell you? Hit fucking support and send us a cup of coffee. That's it. That was my last appeal for money. If you're in Twitter, don't be stingy. The cost of a subscription in Twitter is less than a coffee at Starbucks. It's less than a sandwich on sale at Burger King. So don't give me this shit. Just drop a $5, buy us a coffee. If not, I'm going to start, I'm going to discuss this with Thomas later. And maybe we'll start doing a $1 per view for the show. And, you know, if only 300 people see us, only 300 people see us. I don't care. There are 1,200 now, Thomas.
Oh,
1,200 are watching now.
that's a lot.
That's quite enough. And by the way, that is right now at this very moment. Over the next few days, we're going to have more. So 3,000 people watch this. And a handful of people, always the same, drop a couple of bucks. That is not enough to pay for the internet we use for this shit. So if people will not willingly buy us a coffee every now and then, they will ask for $1 for every show. And if you want to pay $1, you'll watch us. And if not, we're not going to miss you either. By the way, is this pandering to my audience, Thomas?
It's sort of the opposite.
Yeah, because I thought I was a grifter pandering to the audience. Large audiences are fine, but in and of itself, it doesn't mean it. Just saying. That's it. If you can't do it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow at Quad Meet. Quad Meet is an interesting show where I open the mic and people can actually come on camera and have an in-person conversation, discussion. What we've never had is a real fight. No, yeah, we did once when I threw the ball of lard out of the channel for various reasons. But that's once in 5 years, you know. I can have a moment of weakness. I would again. Now, if you want to come in and have a person-to-person discussion with me and a bunch of quads, every now and then you may even have this guy show up. He does. Not every Sunday or anything of the sort, every blue moon when he feels like it. And yeah, I was going to say, says Father Grease, who witnessed that particular kick in the ass. So if you do tomorrow, but you know what, you're going to have to check in social.quadverum.com because that's where I post the information. And everybody who comes through social.quadverum.com is welcome to join me on screen and have a conversation about whatever you guys want. We don't set the agenda, you do. That's it. I plugged the show, I plugged everything, and it's time to unplug ourselves. Thomas, you have a last word for us tonight.
Exanimate.
Exanimate?
Yes.
Exanimate.
Adjective.
Hmm?
Object. Examinate object.
Okay. Thank you so much. And now, guys, you know what you need to Google. You know that there are a couple of quotes that are going to put it in the chat in about 2 seconds now. That's why I don't bother anymore. Thank you so much. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, everybody. I'll see some of you tomorrow and the rest, hopefully, next Saturday. Take care.